Hello and welcome. It is Awful Wins Football. We are back once again. It's just, honestly, we're at the business end of the season now. It just doesn't stop. There is so much to talk about. So let's stop faffing about. We'll be back after this. Hello, we have, like I say, so much that we need to talk about. We've got to talk about the Champions League. We've got to talk about the WSL. We've got to talk about the Frauen Bundesliga. We've got to have a little bit of a stop off at Wales as well in order to keep Sean happy. And if we've got time, it would make sense as well to try and have a little conversation prior to Wednesday's Lower League Lingo, all about why you wouldn't want promotion, because it does seem a little bit mad to bother playing the game should you not actually wish to reap the rewards. But we'll get to that whilst we start talking about the rewards of having two finely tuned and wonderful people with us today to talk all things women's football. Sean, as ever, no stranger to the channel. How are you doing there?
It's been a mixed weekend, Barry. The club I work for, Cardiff City, have been relegated, so whoop-de-doo, League One football, here we go. But Palace went down, so, happy days. And Michael, I am not on my way to a rave. This is a lovely Senegal shirt, which I found this morning. I thought, yeah, that'll do me. But no, I'm always happy to be here, Barry.
I've got to be honest, I was questioning what was going on with the shirt to begin with. Then I only just noticed it. I've been talking to you for the last 5 minutes. I was like, has he sort of knitted that together? I'm sure I had something like that in the 80s. But there we go. And Liberty, lovely to have you here. I'm not sure if you've been on the channel before, but certainly I don't think with me. So really nice to have you here. Welcome. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm going to spoil the fun. I have been here before, but with Connor. And actually, the last time I was here, we were talking all things Germany, so it's quite fitting that I'm back to. We're going to talk about Germany again. But yeah, I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
Perfect. Yes, I'm very good. We've just finished over on the sister channel, and now we're back over here for all the fun of the fair to discuss all things women's football. We're going to kick off, much as we did last week, with the Champions League, because there was a nightmare and there was an absolute dream for the British teams. I suppose we've got to start with the game that was on first, which of course was Chelsea. And Sean, I'm going to ask you first. Did you at any point feel like you were going to see Chelsea lose by the exact same scoreline that they'd lost in the first leg? Because it just seemed so very un-Chelsea-like to go into two games like that and to just not really lay a glove on them.
Before we go into the tactical analysis and everything like that, and we'll make a good fist of it, it was funny though, wasn't it? It was really funny. Oh, the thing is, a performance like this was been coming. They've not been good for a couple of months now. And if there is going to be a team that will find your weaknesses, it is going to be Barcelona. And it happened out in Spain. And lo and behold, it's happened at Stamford Bridge. I don't quite. An inquest feels too much. An inquest is too harsh a word to use, but something has to change because that is unacceptable. It's beyond unacceptable, to be honest, for a team like Chelsea with the money they've put into this squad to have that performance twice against Barcelona. And I know Barcelona are a great team and full credit to them, but no, this is unacceptable from a Chelsea point of view. Germer, Walsh, Ramirez, like we can talk about their injuries, fair enough, but instead of Sam Kerr, you've got Myra Ramirez, who will start for every other WSL team. You have not got Lauren James, but you've got Gura Wrighton, who would start for every other WSL team. I don't want to hear excuses about injuries either. Something went dreadfully wrong, and I still can't quite believe it's happened twice, but it just was quite funny.
I mean, funny is certainly a word people could use. Liberty, I don't know which persuasion of football team you are, so that'll be quite helpful with this conversation. We can certainly leave that within the balance and let people make their own guesses. But I it didn't feel real. And what I mean by that is we're so used to seeing Chelsea as I suppose the best way I could possibly describe it would be the difference between year 6 and year 7 at school in Stevenage. That's where I am. At school in primary school and then to secondary school, because like Chelsea in general are the year 6s. You know, they absolutely rule the playground, they rule the school, but they very much were like some year 7s going into secondary school there against Barcelona, who effectively, to continue the pun, seem to have schooled Chelsea. And I don't say this to try and be funny or glib, but they really did. They weren't the team that everybody's so afraid of, were they?
Yeah, I think it'll be, to go back to your point of you don't know what my persuasion is. Sean does, and I think it'll become clear later on when we talk about other results what my persuasion in football is. But yeah, I think it to go off of once again your analogy of year 6 and year 7, it was very much small fish in a big pond. Chelsea looked lost. They looked sort of directionless at times and looked frazzled. And it almost was as if they were without a captain, which is like insane because we think of Millie Bright as this figure of such importance and almost authority, especially in the WSL. I mean, congratulations to her on her 200th appearance, only the second player to do that in the history of the league, which is insane. But it was sort of like she was there, she wasn't even there, she was a bit lost. And I think there was probably a part of Chelsea going into the second leg that had the ghosts of the first leg hanging over them, and what happened to them was sort of in the back of the mind. And as much as you want to use that to inspire either a comeback or a better performance, it almost did the opposite and weighed on them too much, that even though I think they came out probably in the first 10 minutes, I mean, up until Aitana Bonmeti's goal, I do think Chelsea probably had the upper hand, especially with those two chances from Nuskin and Baltimore. But as soon as Bonmati scored, it's sort of, yeah, the wind was gone from their sails, and I thought, well, this is game over. I thought maybe it was going to end up 7-0 on the night, which is actually insane to think that, you know, Chelsea are usually the ones dealing those out in the WSL and not the other way around. But I generally thought this could be, I mean, 4-1 is embarrassing, but I thought it could be worse for them. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been. It absolutely could have been. And yeah, interesting point here. I also think Bon Pastor made some odd decisions. Chelsea were basically 3-5-2 in possession with Baltimore at the 10. Yeah, absolutely. Sean, my question, I kind of don't like this question because I've been thinking it in my head all day, and it feels like a silly question. But we'll give it a go regardless and see what you think. Why is it that a Chelsea that is so dominant within the English game isn't able to, I wouldn't even say assert their dominance, but to assert themselves in Europe? They've made one final thus far, but ultimately they're not making the sort of imprint in the European game that they have done domestically. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that Chelsea can't make that last little jump? Is it to do with the WSL as it is and the level that we are at as a league? Are we perhaps sort of overcompensating? Do we over-egg the pudding into how good the WSL is compared to other leagues? What's the block at the moment that you think is stopping Chelsea from doing what they would do domestically in Europe?
I think a conversation can be had about where the WSL is relative to Liga F, Division One in France, and whatever. I think that's another conversation we can have for another day. But I think what was quite glaring between this semi-final and the other semi-final, we'll get on to Arsenal. Amazing. And with Arsenal, you saw a team. With Chelsea, I see individuals. I think I see this Chelsea team like that Real Madrid Galacticos of old. I don't see cohesion there. I don't see them coming together when the times are tough. They're like, right, who's rallying? Like, we know Millie Bright's an excellent leader and captain. It's the same with Lucy Bronze. We know she can lead a team rally, but I don't see it. I can't see who's energizing this Chelsea team, and whether that's could Bon Pastor do better? And then you look at a record in France, saying, well, she can do that. So something is missing, and I think it's just it doesn't feel like a Chelsea team. And I think in the WSL, when you have so many individual talents, they can make those differences. But when you're playing an elite team like Barcelona, if you're off, they'll find out. They will find your weaknesses. They will exploit it, and we saw that time and time again on Sunday and last week as well. So that's what it comes down to. I just don't see a team when I look at Chelsea, especially compared to Arsenal. As night and day, yes, I think Chelsea probably have better players, but Arsenal are a better team than Chelsea when it comes to that.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Liberty, the same question essentially to yourself there. What is it that you see as the big block for Chelsea? I mean, Sipaway there has said, could it be a sort of a mentality block against Barcelona, which is interesting because a lot of people talk about that same thing against Chelsea when you go domestically. But they really are struggling. These are big time players. They're good internationals, but they just don't seem to have it. Is it because the other clubs have had more experience at it? What is it?
I think it probably is a mentality thing. This sort of idea that they know only one English team has done it and it's not them. And we can have the conversation of it was 18 years ago. It was, it was a different competition. It was a different name. The caliber of talent was worse. It wasn't worse. Marta was playing in a Champions League final. Like, it's not worse talent. Alex Scott, Kelly Smith are playing in this final. But I think there is this sort of mentality thing of we haven't done it yet. And for all their success and, what will probably almost definitely be 6 back-to-back WSLs, a number of League Cups and FA Cups, they haven't done that final thing. And I don't think bringing in a new manager is going to, immediately change that overnight, over a season. Obviously, they didn't just bring in Sonia Bon Pastor to win the Champions League, because it's not like they fired Emma Hayes. But, it was very much a signing, a managerial signing with the intent of she's done it. She's done the thing that Emma Hayes couldn't do. It was with a different team, but she's done it. She's won it as a player and as a manager. And so she's had that experience where we've fallen. But I do think there was probably some naivety in these 2 legs, and then naivety then paired with mentality of there is an expectation from English fans, English media, that Chelsea have, if only one team are going to make it to a Champions League final, it's probably going to be Chelsea. I think, since they got to the final, that's probably been weighing over them as well. This idea of we are being expected from everyone else to win the quadruple, to at least get to a Champions League final, and the fact that, falling at the last hurdle, I think is commendable. I think, they've given it a good fight. In the last 2 seasons, they gave it more of a fight than this one, but, you don't get to 3 back-to-back semi-finals in the Champions League without having talent and without having the ability to do it. So, kudos to them, but I do think there is a mentality in them that is weighing over them, and it's probably doing more damage than anything else of getting one back into the final and then winning it, because I also think, your first final when you lose 4-0 has also got to sting, and then you carried that as well.
No, for definite. So it was not to be for Chelsea. And again, you look at the managers, Emma Hayes and Sonia Bon Pastor, and they're 2 big names. They're 2 great managers. So, yeah, there's definitely something there. And we will have to wait until next year to see what that is and whether it can be overcome, I suppose. But there was one team who had no such problems, sitting there 2-1 down against Lyon, who've already won their league at a canter, and all is well. But despite it being 2-1, they absolutely played them off the park. It was absolutely brilliant, to be honest. And I came away from this with 2 takeaways. So my first takeaway was, damn it, because Leslie Russo, I think, now actually has a genuine sort of reason to give some stick back to the United fans, because she has had a bit of a rough ride from the United fans for her going over there. And certainly the last season or so, it's been easy enough to sort of point and laugh and say, yeah, see, we won an FA Cup before you won anything. But she's playing in a Champions League final next month. So, you know, that is very much what she was leaving United for. So there was that bit, first of all. But the second bit, and I'm going to come to you straight away for this one, Liberty, because I'm intrigued about your thoughts on this. I missed the first part of the match, but obviously got into to watch the rest. I saw the goals as they happened, but it was an own goal, obviously very, very early, that put them in. And my question really for this one is do you think that helped? I mean, I know it helped, but do you think it helped like massively? And that's part of the reason why you went on to win so comfortably in the end. Because when you start looking at these sort of games, if that score had stayed 0-0 for 30, 40 minutes, all of a sudden you get that little bit more pressure. You get a little bit more of the nerves coming into it. But actually, the fact that the scoreline was effectively straight back to 0-0 again, just 5 minutes into the game, and they haven't really had to do anything other than just pump the ball into the box, in that respect, was a real bonus for Arsenal. So that kind of cancelled the game out and gave them a blank canvas to play again without worrying about that we must score. It's just well, it'd be nice if we score now.
Yeah, I do think it was something that affected Lyon a lot, purely because it's something you don't plan for. Like, you don't expect to score an own goal, especially in sort of that nature of sort of off the back of the arm sort of area. It was very sort of strange, and I don't think anyone could really do it twice in any game. But the fact that it then sort of, they were like, oh God, like we've essentially given them a lifeline. And where Arsenal went, we've got a lifeline, thank you very much, we're going to run with it. Lyon then were struggling to get back into it because, you know, you score an own goal and the heads go down, whether you've then gone 2-2 on aggregate or you've gone 1-0 up or whatever. So I do think it probably was the thing that killed Lyon off, and any sort of bite back then almost wasn't working. And then I think, you know, there's questions about the back line as a whole, questions about choices in the starting 11, and then subsequent substitutions off of those from Joe Montemiro. But I do think, starting with an own goal within 5 minutes is just sort of killer. And I think for all that it did to affect Lyon, you then got to give Arsenal credit and say, you know, you took your chance. You got the lifeline and you went, we're going to run with it and we're going to try and get something out of this game, whether it's then we win 3-2 on aggregate or we win 5-3, you know. But I do think it probably was the thing that killed Lyon off at the beginning, and then they were scrambling to be themselves again and never actually were themselves again.
No, that's fair, but Sean, I think it was one thing to get the early goal, which obviously really helped, and then the first half sort of ebbed and flowed a little bit. But that Caldenti goal, I mean, that was just, I mean, I believe the technical term, I've done a lot of research on this. I believe the technical term is it was filthy. It was just unbelievable on a postage stamp. You've got to give her that one. And then to immediately come out in the second half and get the goal with Leslie Russo as well, which she took incredibly well. She's so incredibly good at doing that in terms of just sliding the ball past the goalkeeper when she's in that position. To be at that point where you're now 2 goals clear, it's no longer level, And of course, we know they went on to get another one with Caitlin Ford as well. But those 2 goals, it's again like a boxing match. It was the old 1-2. And Lyon just weren't expecting it. But this is a Lyon that have been unbeaten. And here they were. I mean, Lyon were having their very own, forgive me for saying, their very own Chelsea moment, because all of a sudden, all of the swagger was gone and they just didn't have an answer for it. How do you legislate for how good Arsenal were in this one when you consider how easily they sort of let it go in their home game?
Yeah, I think when a result like this happens, I think it's just the way we are as people. We tend to focus on the negative side and look at what went wrong. And look, Lyon had an awful game. They have some of the best players in the world, and all of them faltered, wilted on that big stage. But you have to credit Arsenal. Like, to get a goal so early, I think it would have been easy for them to think, right, let's sit back a little bit. We've got this draw now. Maybe we can see play out. But no, they were on it full throttle. They didn't stop. They didn't sit back. They attacked and fully deserve. I genuinely think it's right. And I know some people say, "Oh, but look at what Leon did." But to go there and win 4-0 in a semi-final of a Champions League is one of the best Champions League performances I can remember in some time. And I think obviously the players will take a big part, but huge kudos to Renee Slagers, because I think that is tactical masterclass what she's done in many ways. Montemuro, I don't know what he's doing. Like Shane said in the comments, putting De Mornay in midfield, I think was a really, really silly decision, because I think you lost something when you don't have Van der Donk in there, and I don't think Hegerberg was really at it in the first leg either when she came on, and then it's just But Arsenal, every player amazing. Like Freya's saying, they can't Kim Little. I thought some say I think against when Arsenal played against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge in that one game, I thought she can't do it against the big teams anymore. I think she looks a bit out of it, a little lost. What a way to shut me up. Thank you very much, Kim. That was a sensational display. And I'm really glad Shane brought it up very, very early, because before the quarterfinals, I think you've started it, Barry. I said that Arsenal would get to a final before anything even happened. And I was roundly laughed at in the comments and on this panel. And I'd just like to say, ha, 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 ha. Now, do I want them to win the final? No, absolutely not. But I'd like my credit where credit's due, please, Barry.
I'm sorry, I don't believe I've laughed at you. I'm going to require photographic evidence of this. I don't think I would have laughed at you for saying such a thing. Absolutely not. But there we go. Michael Burt says he says it too. And listen, fair play. Absolutely. Credit where credit's due. It's always good when a prediction comes off. And obviously, taking a look at how you've been doing in the prediction league, it was probably due that you got a decent result there, wasn't it? So well done. Liberty, for you, it's been mentioned in the panel, in the comments, and unfortunately, it's all gone. I'll try and find it in a second and put it back up. But Kim Little, and Sean has mentioned her very much so there. She was just unbelievable. And it's quite interesting. This channel is all about stories. That's what we love. We love the stories. We love finding out what's going on behind the scenes where we can. And we want to get those stories across. And what was really interesting was listening to Karen Carney, actually, afterwards, because she was quite emotional as well, seeing Kim Little get emotional, because Kim Little doesn't get emotional, and now she is. It's an amazing thing, because Arsenal were the only English side to have won the Women's Champions League, which is the UEFA Women's Cup as it was, which is quite amazing, really, because nowhere near it in the men's, not really, are they? But I say that now, you watch them go and win it. But it's for me quite an interesting thing that they are the only team to have won it, and they could very much be about to get that second star on the shirt effectively. And it's a strange thing, and it's one of those things that I think is just actually beautiful about women's football, is the fact that for all of this talk that we're having about how good Chelsea have been domestically, as much as, I mean, Emily Moxham's in the chat, as much as she'll talk about the fact that Liverpool have won top division titles as well, and the fact that Doncaster Rover Bells are, you know, pretty much relegated, and yet they are one of the oldest teams and one of the most well known as well. I've kind of lost where the question's going with this one, because I'm just full of superlatives for the fact that it's not really expected at this moment, is it? Why do you think it is that Arsenal, and granted they haven't won it yet, so it would be, you know, foolish to get there before that, but the fact they've made it to a final, Chelsea did obviously a few years ago as well, but how is it that they've been so successful, do you think, this season in Europe, when they've not been really that close over the last few years?
I think this has been such a strange season for Arsenal. I think it's been a season that we sort of haven't seen, ironically, since Joe Montemurro came in. I think I just called him John. I'm so sorry. Joe Montemurro came in, because he came in at almost a very similar place to when Renee came in, as in halfway through a season, sort of having to try and revitalize the team and get them to believe in themselves again. And I think that this is sort of a team that over the past 3 seasons now, including this season, have had some like unbelievable lows. Like, we had the 2 seasons ago, the 4 ACLs in one season, and then you add in Kim was injured, Leah Volti was injured at the end of the season. We had to sign Jodie Taylor on like a quick loan because we had no other players, and we got to a semi-final, and it was, you know, at the death of that semi-final that we lost to Wolfsburg. And then last season we don't get out of the qualifying stages, and, you know, Sean will probably laugh that they didn't do that, or somebody else will laugh that they didn't do that. But, you know, that is also another low, and that sort of set the tempo off for a really strange season once again for Arsenal. Then we lose the opening game to Liverpool. Then we go away to United and draw in that really strange 2-2. That everyone still felt very discombobulated and unsure of each other. And then we finally win at the death against Villa at the Emirates. And then we come to this season, and we've had the loss to Häcken, BK Häcken, away in Gothenburg. But then we beat them at home. We go through. Then we lose to Bayern in the most god-awful of fashions, and it was embarrassing, and it was awful. And then we drew to Everton, lost to Bayern, lose to Chelsea. Jonas is gone. So then we're revitalised. We then win against Vålerenga. We then once again draw away at United. It seems like a bit of a curse. And then we win all games, including Bayern at Meadow Park, until the Chelsea game at Stamford Bridge. And it's a season that has felt very much cut into sections by losses, both with Jonas and then like post Jonas. The Chelsea game, the City semi-final in the Subway Cup, the Liverpool FA Cup game, but then every time, minus the City game because we haven't been able to play City since, but we've then come back in the sort of second leg. You know, Liverpool at the Emirates stormed them out the park, Real Madrid stormed out the park, Leon stormed them out the park, and it feels like quite strange, but it also feels like an Arsenal team that are, for the big bulk of this squad, have been together for 5 years at this point. Like, I'm not. She could have had both her teams in it. What's my other team?
I'm assuming she means the Arsenal men.
Oh, okay. I was like, I'm not a Chelsea fan. I'm not a Chelsea or Barcelona fan. That really threw me. Sorry. it's a team that brought with them the pain of the past to then into now, and reformulating this sort of mentality of we can still do it. We're not out of the tie yet. And I feel like that was encompassed in yesterday. And I don't actually know if that answered the question at all. That was.
Listen, I think it was perfectly fair and perfectly reasonable. And I think that's one of the things is that actually, you know, it's the joy, I suppose, of being a football fan. The fact that you get these opportunities to see them. And like Sean's already waxed lyrical as well about how well Arsenal did there. And they really did, Sean. They really did. How much credit do you give to Renee Slagers? And do you think that the difference between Renee and Jonas is shining through really at the moment? Because, you know, for all of, you know, the tactical knowledge and the know-how that Jonas had, there was always a bit of an undercurrent between some of the fans and some of the players and him. Just seems to be gone at the moment.
You give so much credit. So much credit. And I think I was one of them when it was announced that she'd get the permanent job. I thought, oh, is it just going to be Jonas Light or Jonas 2.0? There's still going to be some of that philosophy ingrained in her. But it's not. It's not. And I think what helps, and it might sound a little, but she's very Dutch. There's calmness to her. There's no overreaction. There's no bravado. It's very no panic. We'll stay calm. We all know the game plan. No need to panic if it goes a little wrong. We'll come back next time. She brings in such calm to this team, and I don't see any player out there ever since she's taken over panicking or really putting in a poor performance. I can't remember them putting in a really bad performance, but potentially maybe that Chelsea game away at Stamford Bridge. I think maybe it's the only time I thought, oh, they've been maybe a little bit off it there. But even I can't remember a bad performance, and she has to take so much credit because she's got the same players as Jonas did, but she's getting so much more out of them now. Could you say, well, the players are trying for Renee and not trying for Jonas? That is, you can have that debate if you want, but no, you have to give full credit to her, and yeah, no, thoroughly deserved as we've said.
No, absolutely. So there we go. We have a Champions League final set up for May. It is indeed going to be the mighty Barcelona against the apparently mighty Arsenal as well. And it will be quite an experience. I can't wait. I think it's going to be a fantastic final, whatever happens. And I can't wait to watch it. I suppose we've got to ask the question, Liberty, heart and head. What do you think is going to be the outcome?
Obviously, heart says Arsenal. Head, sensible journalist head says Barcelona purely because I can't look past him. I can't look past Eva Payot. I feel like if people know me at all, I'm the first person to sing her praises. I think she's one of my favourite players and has been for a while, but she's also the best striker in the world of football. And I don't say that lightly. So with purely that, I think head says Barcelona, but heart says Arsenal, of course.
And Sean, I'm expecting that your head and heart both say the same thing.
Yeah, Barcelona. That midfield three is sensational. It's to have Patry, Bonmati, and Pateas controlling that midfield. Just and Graham Hansen, Claudia Pina, I think, has been sensational this season. Payot, and if you want a team to work out how to play against Mariona Caldente, I think this Barcelona team might know really well how to play against Mariona Caldente. So, yeah, I can't look past Barcelona.
Fair enough. We are going to get on to the WSL shortly, but just before we do, it's time for a little spotlight. Not this one that I really do need to sort out because it's blinding me at this moment in time. But this is for the Bundesliga. I think now is a good time to just drop this in here, because we have our new champions. We had the champions of Italy announced last weekend with Juventus, and now we have got our German champions as well in Bayern Munich. And I mean, they've done incredibly well all season, Liberty, but I mean, arguably the result against Frankfurt the other week was in April, the 12th. So that game really pretty much sorted it out, didn't it? To be fair, it was always going to be an easy situation of just getting a few points on the board after that. What have you made of the season so far? Because I mean, from what I've been able to see in my granted limited knowledge of German football, I've only just started getting into it and trying to cover it. There's so many different stories. So we'll go to the bottom shortly, because that's blown my mind, the conversation around that particular team. But just sticking with the top, it's not necessarily all the teams that you would expect. But Wolfsburg, again, this is a side that we know do incredibly well in the Champions League and have good reputation in that. But it's Bayern being now joint top, 7 titles for them, and now really starting to shine through both in the women's game as well as the men's.
Yeah. I mean, 3 back-to-back titles since Alexander Strauss took over is unbelievable. And what he's done for Bayern, and they're sort of cementing them as the best team in German women's football, is unbelievable. Connor, it is 10. This is her 10th title in a row, going back to Linköping, which is unbelievable. For the people who don't know, Pernille Harder has now won 10 league titles in a row, going back to her final year at Linköping before she moved to Wolfsburg, and then Wolfsburg, then to Chelsea, and now 2 in a row at Bayern Munich. I mean, I think actually probably it was a season that Bayern will probably not be too happy with. Obviously, in the Champions League, but also in the league, they weren't in control for nearly as much as they would have wanted to be, and they have been in the past. In the past 2 seasons, they definitely controlled the league much more than they did this season. Obviously, I feel like maybe that probably says more on I say this with a heavy heart, the fall off of Eintracht Frankfurt. Fall off may be a bit dramatic, but for a team that were in such control, are now 3rd again, after Wolfsburg won today at the death against Hoffenheim. But I think Bayern, they were worthy winners. They took their chances when they were presented to them. The Wolfsburg home game, which they won, and then away at Eintracht Frankfurt, the 3-0 in the Deutsche Bank Park Stadium is just unbelievable. And it felt, I actually think probably from when Wolfsburg thumped Frankfurt 6-1 was probably the moment where I was like, well, this is Bayern's league now. This is their chance to go. We're Bayern Munich and we're going to win again. That being said, Strauss is leaving, and you then look at, okay, who's going to come in, who's going to take over, and also a lot of these players, especially starting players, are Strauss players and Strauss signings, especially Pernille Harder, Magdalena Eriksson, Georgia Stanway when she's fit is a Strauss player, and you think, okay, is this going to translate the same way to a new manager? But at the same time, a lot of the league is going through this sense of a new manager. Wolfsburg will have a new manager come September as well. When September comes, that was the reference I was going for there. And I think it's a very interesting time for the league, because basically the only team that are probably going to have much in the way of consistency might be Frankfurt, other than the players that have already said they're leaving, like Sina Johannes is going to Wolfsburg, and Barbara Dunst is also going to Bayern. So I think, it's a very interesting place for the league to be in. But yesterday Bayern knew what they needed to do. They needed to win to lift the trophy, and they did it. And I'm, congratulations to them. I can't fault them because they have had a good season. Even if it wasn't what they would have wanted, almost overall.
No, absolutely. Just to say, Alan, Wolfsburg did go second, absolutely, by beating Hoffenheim this evening, but they haven't secured it. There are still 2 games left in the Bundesliga, and Frankfurt are only a point behind them, and even Leverkusen are only 5 behind them. So technically and mathematically, we can't have that as a fact going out there. But absolutely good win for them to leapfrog Frankfurt there. And certainly put them in the driver's seat there, which is very, very good for them. Sean, I've got no idea your level of knowledge when it comes to Germany, but I will ask for your overview of what you've thought of the season in general, and if there's any surprise for you, really, that a big name like Bayern are right up there now in terms of league titles.
No surprise at all, but I think out of all of Europe's top 5 leagues, it's been by far the most exciting to watch all season. I think around the Christmas stage, I think we had a 4-horse race for the title. You had Leverkusen up there as well, and Leverkusen have some really good young talent at Leverkusen. But yeah, I think the storylines at the top, it's been a really good watch. I think Bayern, as JJ said there as well, I'm thinking Oberdorf's going to be back next season. That is, you think about a midfield of Oberdorf, Stanway, and Pernilla Harder. Good luck. Yeah, Wolfsburg. Well, I don't know what's going on. I think the whole Barcelona debacle, and then what's going to happen off the end of it. That's going to be a really interesting watch. Frankfurt always feel like they're always the bridesmaid, never the bride. They're so close to something. I know, and I know Liberty does like Frankfurt, and I know she doesn't like me criticizing it, so that's fine. But it's just been a really good watch all season, and definitely if you're someone who maybe is solely focused on the WSL and you're looking at another league to get into, I highly recommend the Bundesliga. There's coverage of it on DAZN as well. So, no, been a really good one. I generally would urge anyone to give a Bundesliga game a watch.
It's very interesting. And actually, I did watch one very recently, and DAZN again, I've got to give them credit, and I really hope they maintain this, not just because I'm a miser and I feel like I spend enough money as it is, but because they do put so much football out there for people to watch from a variety of different leagues. And it's incredible. They've even the YouTube channel as well, where you can watch so many different matches. And I did watch one. I watched one on Friday evening, and it was Potsdam against Leverkusen. And I couldn't help but sit there and honestly watching it. Like I say, that was the first Bundesliga game that I've actually sat and watched. And I'll be honest with you, Liberty, I was sat there and I was going, this is like rubbish. It's absolutely terrible. This is like, and I felt for them. Like, I actually just had in my heart, I was like, it's a shame. And then, of course, you heard that they were relegated 2 seasons ago. They won and immediately came straight back up again. And you think, that's very good. They're plucky. So imagine my absolute surprise when you start doing research to find out that they were level on titles with Bayern Munich on 6 before Bayern decided to go and win this one. So we're talking about a side who, back in the day, a bit Donny Rovers Bells-esque almost, were incredibly good. I think they've got a couple of Women's Cup, UEFA Women's Cup titles as well. So when we start talking about Turbine Potsdam, they're actually a massive club. Why is it that they've dropped so much? I mean, we had Sean talking about the Welsh League the other day with Cardiff Met and some of the teams they're not doing as well as they would usually do. You've seen it in Australia as well. Sydney FC not performing as well as they would usually perform. But now here in the Bundesliga, like that's crazy. I mean, this is the equivalent of in 10 years' time seeing Chelsea go down to the Championship. It's mad.
Yeah, as Annie's just pointed out, they are the only club left without a big men team backing them. Even in the sense of, Wolfsburg women are better than Wolfsburg men, but Wolfsburg men are still in the top flight of men's German football. So it is a sense of investment lacking, but this is also a Potsdam team that, you know, once on the conversation of Arsenal, once had Leah Volti playing for them, and then she joined Arsenal from Potsdam. So I think it's a sense of backing. It's also, you have to understand that still the top flight of German football in the women's game is not fully professional. So you have teams losing as badly as Potsdam have done this season and trying to fight against big clubs like Bayern, who are, you know, having such big backing and such big encouragement from a men's team as such, a bigger club overall, that they are sort of lost in the haze, and it is unbelievably sad to see them. I mean, the first time they were relegated, it was truly heartbreaking because of what they hold historically in the women's game in Europe. To then have it happen again, almost the first time of asking after being promoted back up, is still truly just as sad, because they've looked toothless all season. They've looked like they've had nothing to fight for, and then to be relegated is just sort of almost what is expected, which isn't, not in the terms of they go into the season and think we're going to be relegated, but in terms of against everyone else, it almost felt inevitable. And I think, that probably played into fixtures and results, especially in the last couple of months. And it is really sad. I would even say it's more than if Chelsea were relegated to the Championship. It's if Arsenal were relegated to the Championship. The sense of historically in the women's game what they've held, and then it all being sort of tossed aside. And I think it's really a shame, and it makes me really sad. I can't lie. So I think obviously you hope that, you know, they go down to 2 from Bundesliga, the second Bundesliga, and they can fight back up again, because they've done it before. They know what that's like. But in an age where teams like Union Berlin are being promoted for the first time this season, they're backed by a men's team, and there's never been I believe, please somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there's never been a women's team in the top flight of German football from the capital. And so there will be one next season, because they were promoted yesterday. And so you think there are teams that are being promoted now back to the top flight that are being backed by men's team, and will Potsdam fall even further away, and will it become an even harder task for them to be back up again next season? After next season, if they get promoted. But it's really sad.
It is. It does feel quite sad, like you say. And this is, like I say, all about stories. That's what we love on this channel. And I find that absolutely mad. And it's, you know, quite a thing. And then this is the sort of thing that, you know, we try and throw out as much as we can within these matches that we send out on Twitter when we're putting up these results and all those things, to throw these bits of history in as we find them, because if you don't hear it, you never learn it, and it's a very helpful thing. So fair play there. It has been mentioned about the cup as well, that is happening on Thursday the 1st of May. Bayern Munich will be facing Werder Bremen in the, I'll say it wrong, but I'm not like Connor, I'll give it a go, the DFB Pokal, Frown, one of them, the German Cup. They're playing in that, and that's the final, obviously. So, Sean, what do you reckon? Is that going to be a Bayern win, or will that be a Werder Bremen win? Bearing in mind they're a mid-table side. I mean, my money would go on Bayern, but that's me very much being biased on where they are in the league.
I'd love a different winner of the Pokal. It's been dominated by Wolfsburg for so long, but I'd love Bremen to win it, but I can't see it. I think Bayern will find a way through, and that will be at that. But I think it'll be a competitive final, though. I'm hoping. I think that's what I'd like to see anyway.
Brilliant. Liberty, what do you reckon?
See, the Pokal. I also don't know how to say it.
Brilliant. Glad it's not just me.
Yeah, I don't speak,
apparently.
I don't speak a lick of German. For all my watching, I don't know any. So I apologise. But it's always been Bayern's sort of nemesis, and it is because Wolfsburg have been so unbelievably dominant in it that they've sort of, if they've got to the final, Wolfsburg have sort of just blown them away. So I think probably it's their time to do it. I do wonder if there will be a mentality thing of we've struggled before, will it hang over us? I don't think so, purely because of, I do think Bayern are probably a step above Bremen, but I think, yeah, probably I would put my money on Bayern if I was a betting man. But don't, if you are a betting man, please don't take my advice. Please, that would be dreadful.
What I'm hearing there is stick a grand on them. Okay, no problems. We can do that. No drama. So there we go. That's the DFB Pokal. That's what I'm going to go with. And we will see if somebody shouts at me there. A couple of questions for you, Liberty, to quickly answer. Which teams from Germany do you think will make it to the Champions League next year? Obviously, we know that Bayern Munich will be one. We mentioned Leverkusen. They are still just about in the battle for the top three. Do you see it still being just the top three as it is now, Wolfsburg and Frankfurt, or do you think Leverkusen can squeak in?
I think it will be Frankfurt and Wolfsburg. I think the order of that is still contentious because it is only 1 point. I don't think Leverkusen can do it at this point. I think as much as it only is 5 points, it feels like 5 points too many. I think if they were 1 point away as well, I'd probably be like, ooh, maybe. But I do think it'll be Wolfsburg and Frankfurt. I think Frankfurt will have sort of a sense of revenge over them from this season, because they went out in the first game of qualifying in the sort of mini tournament phase. They fell apart. I don't really know what happened to this day. They weren't themselves at all, and that sort of, I think, will carry them to try and push for more, because they were in the group stages last year. If anyone remembers, they were in Barcelona's group. So yeah, I do think it'll be Frankfurt and Wolfsburg. I just think it depends who finishes second and who finishes third and who has to do the extra round of qualifying.
Agree. I mean, 1 slip-up's possible. 2 slip-ups out of 2 is very much asking for it. Sean, would you agree with that?
Yeah, fully agree. I think Leverkusen have done really well this season, but I think this might just be a bridge too far for them.
Okie dokie. And one last question, which came from Sipiway, was what happened, or what's happening rather, with Wolfsburg? Why are so many players leaving?
Yes, they did score. Sorry, I've just seen a comment. They scored against Barcelona. Yes, they did. It was Laura Freigang, which, if anyone knows, once again, if knows me at all, they also know Laura Freigang is in my top 3 players in the world. I love her. So yes, they did score against Barcelona. For Wolfsburg, I think it's a sense of they took a gamble bringing back Tommy Scoot, and it really didn't pay off. If anyone remembers, he said he was leaving at the end of last season. He was rumoured with this team in the north of England called Manchester United, if anyone knows them. And then they went, oh, actually, no, we're going to stick with Mark Skinner. And then he went, oh, God, okay, I'll go back to Wolfsburg. And they took him back, and it was very strange. And then it sort of hung over them for the rest of the season. Of he didn't have the right tactics last season. They didn't get Champions League football last season. And it was a very strange season, but they won the cup, so it was sort of almost fine. They got a trophy out of it. And then coming into this season, they lost a lot of players, and they didn't recruit correctly to replace them. They lost Lena Oberdorf to Bayern Munich, and even though she hasn't played, obviously, it has been probably their biggest loss. And also they lost Eva Pyle to Barcelona, and Bernstein is very good. I'm not gonna sit here and say she's not, but she's no Eberpile. It's like replacing a lion with an elephant. Both very good animals, but one is slightly better. And I think there is a sense of recruitment wasn't right. Stroot's tactics were in big games were all over the place, and even in smaller games they've struggled. Player management has been atrocious, benching players just purely because they've said they're leaving, forcing players out, and at the end of the day it's sort of come to bite them in the arse, and they are where they are because of that. Brand has already said she's leaving Wolfsburg, and then Brand is leaving. What's the goalkeeper called? Sean, please help me.
Murder France.
Yes, Frooms is leaving, and then he's forced players out because they've expressed that they want to leave. Jonsdottir is supposedly leaving as well, and it's a lot of like bad player management, bad tactics, and it's cost them a lot, and it will be a long way back to their superiority, I'd say. As much as they are top three, very good, it is more of a fight to keep up with Bayern now than it will ever be.
Absolutely. I mean, well done for asking Sean that one, because Google would have had to be my friend on that one. But now you mention, I'm like, oh, I know that person. Yes, absolutely. But I would never in a million years have guessed which one that was. I would be rubbish on a question of sport on this round. You have opened yourself up to one more question, which I feel is very important. What is better, a lion or an elephant?
A lion.
Okay.
But I like elephants, but I just feel like tactically I'd go a lion, purely because they're fast, they're vicious, they're hungry. And the elephant, I love them, but they're like a bit lackadaisical and slow, and they just sort of love life, and they don't have any like hunger and bite.
If the elephant sits on the lion, not got much hope, has it? That's game over there. Interesting. Okay, let us know in the chat. What's better, a lion or an elephant? I feel like that's an important question that we need to solve by the end of today. But whilst we're waiting for that, rather, you can play polo with one. I'm presuming the elephant, you don't want to try playing polo with a lion, unless it's Marco Polo. That would be quite a good one, potentially. But then you've got to wonder how it is the lion understands English. Right, WSL. Let's get ourselves back into that one. I don't want to fly too hard into the Manchester City and Leicester City result. We kind of know what's happened there. I think on this channel we've had enough of a conversation thus far as to whether or not we think Man City are going to catch the top three, especially with Sean. But I am intrigued, Liberty, is your thoughts on this one, because you've not expressed an opinion on this. So I will just ask you quickly, do you see City finishing in the top three, or do you think it's a job too far for them?
I think it's a job too far. I think unless United get 0 out of 9 in these next 3 fixtures, and I would say there's a possibility of that happening because of the opposition at hand, but I don't think that it will happen. I think that's a bit naive to say, especially about United, but I think it's a step too far. I think it will be closer than United will want, but I think it will come down to like a point or two. Maybe maybe 3. But I do think it will be Chelsea, Arsenal, and United top 3.
Good. Let's not go on about it too much. Give me nightmares. It's nearly bedtime. We don't need that. And you're right. There wasn't a Disney film called The Elephant King. I believe he was called Dumbo, and we all love him. So let's not be taking the mickey out of poor old Dumbo. So there we go. Right. So that's it. We're not going to cross that bridge too much. I think the important one, and this is where we get to release Sean, I think, on this one, because I feel like he's going to have a few things to say. Because the remaining 3 results that happened on Sunday was unbelievable. we can kick off with Crystal Palace losing to West Ham. Who knew that West Ham had that in them? A 7-1 away win against Crystal Palace, who've literally been sent with their tail between their legs. Within all of that as well, Everton managed to lose to Brighton, with Brighton doing a superb job there. Nikita Paris doing what Nikita Paris does best, scoring last-minute goals for fun and for giggles, and upsetting Everton in the process. But within that, Liverpool have also drawn with Spurs. So after all that chat from last week about Liverpool defeating Brighton and that's it, now they're potentially going to drop out of the top 6, all of a sudden it's Brighton again back into 5th position, and there is a definite battle to be had for that top 6 spot. I've never been so excited about a top 6 race in my life, Sean, and it has literally all come down to the fact that I desperately want you to be right and Connor to be wrong. That's it, really. So what a day of WSL entertainment that's been. It just goes to show it ain't over yet.
Yeah, and I like what you said earlier in the show, that football's about beautiful moments and things that make you happy. And Crystal Palace got relegated, and it was a beautiful moment, and it really did make me happy. If you concede 7 to West Ham at any point in the season, it should be instant relegation. Like, I'm sorry. Like, West Ham don't score 7. But fair play. Rhian Skinner, by the way, what a late surge for manager of the season. Honestly, superb what she's done with West Ham. And Shakira Martinez will have to be in the conversation for something, some award at some point. Could even get a Golden Boot. Like, there is a world where she could win the Golden Boot. But yeah, Palace. Well, we know it was going to happen as soon as the season started, and so it's been proven correctly that they're going down. And hope maybe it might take them a while to come back up. Who knows? Yeah. Well, there we go. Yeah, top 6 is interesting. I think West Ham have made a really good surge for it. It made me really worry the last couple of weeks, and seeing the form of people like Martinez, Asai, Emma Harries, you're like, you know what, they could do it. That Liverpool draw was weird because it made me realise, oh, Tottenham are still going. They're actually still trying. I mean, I thought they'd given up a long, long time ago, but there's life. There's a bit of life in Robert Villaham's team. And then, yeah, in the predictor league, I predicted Brighton to lose. I thought I'll go for a different approach this time. I don't back my team. And I really like what Everton have been doing. So imagine my surprise when we scored a 93rd minute winner to beat them. So yeah, a weird weekend all round. But a Sunday I was very happy with Brighton winning and Palace maybe never returning again to the WSL.
Yeah. Wow, a little bit on the harsh side there. Listen, don't get in between Sean and Crystal Palace. It's just not worth it. Do we really care that much that we need to put ourselves in there? We're not that geezer in Tiananmen Square. It's not a tank that we need to try and stop. Just let it roll. Let it roll. Liberty, same sort of question, I think, for you. But I want to kind of frame it slightly differently because that's Palace down now. And obviously they came up and they're going immediately down. Bristol City came up. They went immediately down. The last team to come up from the Championship and stay up was Liverpool in 21-22, and they came up and then did really well and then beat Manchester United to 4th, which was slightly depressing. But they've done an incredible job to do that. Do you worry that the gap between the WSL and the Championship is now starting to widen? Or do you think that, something else really? Because, it could have been Villa, it could have been Leicester. It ended up being Crystal Palace this time round. What do you reckon?
I would say yes if the team that I think will probably be promoted wasn't London City Lionesses, purely because I don't think their squad as it exists right now, as I go on Google and look at their squad list, is WSL standard, but they've got the money for it, and I think they've got the want to spend the money to have a WSL team, whereas Crystal Palace essentially redid the entire squad and it didn't work out. And kudos to them for doing that. I think that was probably needed, because I think it would have been worse than it has been if they hadn't have done that. But then the players that they're bringing in are not the right standard. Katie Stengel is a great player and has had a great history in the women's game, but she's not that player anymore. They brought in a goalkeeper as their number one, who was relegated last season with Bristol City. It's like questionable decisions, like little questionable decisions that are then costing everyone. Before I forget, yes, Shakira Martinez is from Frankfurt, and she did leave Eintracht Frankfurt at the end of last season to join West Ham. But yes, I think if the proposition of a team like London City being promoted wasn't on the cards, I would say yes, the gap is bigger than anyone wants. But because it's them, I think maybe not, because I think if a team's going to come up and stay up, it's going to be somebody with the backing of Michelle Kang, which frightens me, but also excites me, because if she's willing to put the money in, then Leicester have to put the money in, which will be an interesting proposition now that Leicester men will be a championship side. What will that look like once again for them to have a top flight women's team but a second tier men's team? West Ham, will they continue investing? Will they find more tiny little gems in Germany or other else that people aren't seeing? So I do think, yeah, Kang money is a thing that I have a complicated feelings towards in general, but I do think it will push other people to invest more, which then probably will then create even bigger gap between the Championship and the WSL. And it's like it's a lot of back and forth how I feel, but I do think at this current moment, if the proposition wasn't London City being promoted, then I would say the gap is bigger. But because it's them, maybe not. I don't know. I feel very strangely about the two tiers currently because of Michelle Kang and her investment.
Be interesting. Very interesting to see what happens there. But yeah, certainly the WSL is still hotting up with just the 3 games to go, and it'll be very interesting to see what's going to happen there. But as far as we're concerned, the relegation is sorted, and it is now just a case of working out what's going to happen in 1, 2, and 3. I will throw this question up. We don't really have the time, I don't think, to go through it this evening, but rest yourself in the knowledge that we definitely will be throwing them into our Monday night shows as we go through. There's still, I think, about another 3 or 4 games to go in Liga F, so they've still got quite a bit to do, because they've got a full-on schedule, 16 teams, so they play 30 games, and I think they're on about 26 or 27 the last time I remember looking at it. So they've still got a few weeks to run, so we will be catching them. And of course, it could be Barcelona, it could be Real Madrid. It's a very similar sort of story up there. And the Ligue 1, of course, we know has been won by Lyon. They have an interesting way of playing as well, because even though they won the league, they've now got to go off and try and win a playoff tournament as well, but I don't think they've reached that point just yet. They've just got to finish that off, so we will probably be talking about Liga over the next couple of weeks at some point when the playoffs are starting to come around. So do not worry, we absolutely have our minds on looking at that as well. But my final part, the bit that I wanted us to concentrate on, and we'll be doing a lot more on this on Wednesday evening on our Lower League Lingo show, was the news that came out yesterday, which I think, I don't know if it rocked football, but if it hasn't, it probably should. This idea that Wolves sent their women's team out into the last game of the season, believing that had they managed, and don't get me wrong, it was a hell of a swing that was needed. It needed a 15-goal swing. It needed Nottingham Forest to lose, and it needed Wolves to win. But they hit that situation. They get into a place where they could have won it, believe they've won the league, come celebrating. And when they got back into the changing rooms, they would have been told, well, it's brilliant that you've won the league, but we're not going up. Now, the last time Wolves won it 3 or 4 years ago, they couldn't go up because they had to do a playoff, and it didn't work. They lost. Now, it's a bad enough thing to have to go for a playoff when you won your league, and then have imagine that's like being given a PlayStation and then being told you can only have it for the day on Christmas, and then it's gone because you're going to give it to your cousin down the road because he beat you at rock, paper, scissors. It's atrocious, really. And we finally learned from that to the point where if you win a league, you get to go up. And they didn't even apply. Now, my tweet obviously was not laden with enough sarcasm, because when I put there it's unfathomable that they did not know they needed to do this, I was being glib. I know they knew they needed to do this. They're not stupid. It's unfathomable that they didn't. And that's my whole point, is that surely if you're going to compete, which Wolves do, it's not like they're sitting around the bottom of tier 3. They absolutely compete year after year for the top spots. So it begs the question, this is a Premier League side. We're not talking about a team that doesn't have a men's team with potential income streams that are coming in that could help if needed whilst they're bridging that gap. They could choose to invest. They've chosen not to. So Liberty and Sean, I just wanted to ask the pair of you kind of what your thoughts are, because to me, this makes a mockery of the entire reason of playing football. The whole purpose of spending, for the fans, people have gone and spent hard-earned money, believing that they were supporting their team and hoping that they were going to get a promotion. This doesn't make it any better. The fact that they did not or could not have gone up, you kind of just feel like you've wasted your money. Why did we bother spending that? It never would have meant anything anyway. And I don't know. It really winds me up, because it feels so unnecessary. And now Wolves, as a women's side, you feel are going to be on the brink. Because if I was a player for Wolves, I'm not convinced I would want to carry on being a player for Wolves if that's how we're going to be treated. So, Liberty, we'll go with you first on this one. What was your thoughts when the news was broken, with Beth Merrick putting that out there, and what do you think needs to happen? Because I don't think it's right. If you don't want to be promoted, you probably shouldn't be playing. You should be asking not to be in that league and go off and play in tier 8 or something.
Yeah, I agree. I think we have a lot of conversations about promotion and relegation, especially with the proposals of no promotion and relegation in the WSL. But you have to remember that promotion and relegation has an impact across the pyramid. That's the whole point of it. And I think it is a sad indictment of what some of these quote unquote bigger clubs think of women's football, that the fact that they can, essentially go toe to toe with Nottingham Forest, who have put in investment, especially in the last year, into their women's team, to want to fight for promotion, and then find out that. But essentially, what Wolves have said is, we can't be bothered to live up to what is in the legislation for promotion. What happens is, when you are promoted to the championship, you have to apply. And what the piece of paper essentially says is, you will invest in the women's team, more money. You will look to go fully professional, and essentially you will be a better outfit of a team, because you will put money in and you will attempt to make them fully professional. And what Wolves have basically said is, we don't want to do that. We're happy with the amount of money we're putting in now, which is probably not a lot in terms of other Premier League teams, especially someone like Nottingham Forest, who have stepped up their investment, especially in the last couple of seasons. And I think that is the sad thing, that essentially Wolves, who we see as a Premier League team and are consistently in the Premier League, have essentially said, we don't care. We don't actually want to invest. We don't actually give two tosses about our women, but these women are fighting for this club and this badge every week. They care, they love this club, but we don't love them back. And I think that there is something unbelievably heartbreaking about this sort of attitude from a big club, because they are not a small club. whether you think of a big club, I think of big clubs as Premier League, that sort of status. A big club is a team that is consistently in the top flight of football. So Wolves, that is them. And the fact that they've essentially slapped their women around the face and said, actually, we don't care. If they could probably pull out of funding, they probably would at this point. That's what it feels like. And it is concerning that this is not something that's happening in tier 5 and below. This is happening in essentially the third tier of English football. Thank you. It's not something that's happening, really far down, and they've got no money, so they have to not put this legislation forward. But actually, it's tier 3, and it's actually a team that is backed by an owner with money, and they've essentially gone, stuff you, we don't care. And I when I saw the tweet that came out yesterday, I actually just felt unbelievably heartbroken. And the fact that this is something that's still happening in 2025 by big teams is just unbelievable, especially when we think of sort of the successes of Wolves men in their Premier League season and like the games they've won and stuff, to then essentially know that that's not a possibility for the women ever, really, it feels like, because they just don't care enough to want to invest. I don't actually think any of this has made sense. Sorry.
No, it's fine. Sean, it's a strange one. And, you get a lot of people that will have these sorts of conversations about not supporting their women's team as much as they could do. Is there ever an acceptable answer from a side like Wolves, from any side where they have teams that play at this level? There isn't the level of money in the women's game that the men's game has. We know that. If you go and win the championship, if you get any money at all, it's not going to be a huge amount. Certainly when in tier 3, you're not getting much, if anything. In fact, I would probably say nothing for winning tier 3, which in itself is criminal. But the whole point is that the money's not there. They're not able to provide that much of an income through competition wins and that sort of thing. It's more about getting people through the door, watching the game, doing those sorts of things. Is there an argument from these clubs that's fair that actually, if we're not going to see a level of income coming in, we're not going to support it? I don't agree with what I've just said, but listen, transparency, you've got to sit there and try and look at things in a different way and not just sit there and be banging on about teams. But the fact that it's going to cost them money, is that a reasonable thing to say? Because, you look at their youth teams, I would imagine they're costing them money. They'll argue, well, this is probably going to provide us with players for the future. But what, 1, 2? It's not every single player that's playing for you is going to provide you with money. A lot of them you're just going to get rid of and send to other clubs. But you still do it because they're boys. So why are we not doing this for the girls? Why are we not sitting there and saying, you know what, we're going to, as we said on our other channel, talking about the sevens, actually lead the way and go, do you know what, we're going to try it. My brother always used to say, when we play Monopoly, speculate to accumulate. So you've got to actually put a little bit of money in first before you start seeing it returned. And actually, if more of these clubs took it seriously, do you think that then maybe more sponsors would take it seriously and we'd start to see more money coming into the game, and that then as a result, they would start to see that come back?
My message is, you don't know until you try it. Like, invest, see what happens. Quite simple, especially if you're a club like Wolves and you can afford to do it, see what you can do. And I put a TikTok out on it yesterday, and a lot of male Wolves fans in my comments saying, oh, it's just the women's team. Oh, it doesn't matter. Oh, the men's team are financially propping up the women's team. It's only, oh, we're doing this just to woke, blah, 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 blah. And, it's the same badge. It's the same shirt. They play in the same stadium sometimes. It's the same, well, we think it's the same ethos. The only difference is that they're women. And I can only assume that's how the board feels. because there's no reason. There is no reason. It's exactly the same. It's just a women's senior team, same as a men's senior team, same as the academy. And Wolves are a great club. Don't go. I mean, what Wolves do, work in the community, and what they've done, superb. They have the money. Treat your women's team better. And I've said it a few weeks ago that, well, I think a lot of us are focused on the WSL and the changes that Nikki Tossett wants to make in the WSL and the Championship. But you look at tier 3, tier 4, tier 5 below, there are some horror stories out there. And quite frankly, if you don't sort out the very base level, you're not going to have a top level. So sort it out. Something needs to be done. Whether that we need one whole body to cover all 6 tiers, financial rules, I don't know what it is, but something needs to change because quite frankly, it will make its way to the top and we might not even have a league. Like, it's that serious to me. So for a club like Wolves, you can do it. If you're going to, oh, we want to invest, not sure we're going to see an investment. Well, try it. And if you do, great. If you don't, okay, then you know. But try it for God's sake.
Well, I mean, we know the WPL have got the top 2 tiers. And again, I think it's just, for me, they need to get in communication a bit more and start talking about how they're going to revamp women's football all the way across the country. Because at the moment, it's almost like the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. And as a result, it's causing a lot of problems. And yeah, maybe so. Maybe Wolves is another example why a closed league system won't work or isn't needed. We'll see too many that are dropping out. Like I say, we are going to cover that in a lot more depth on Wednesday on Lower League Lingo, when we are hoping to have a little bit more of, let's say, a deeper chat around everything that's been going on over the last few weeks. We've got Stourbridge to talk about there, Halifax, Hull City and their request to just be relegated as well. It's a bit of a madness. And I don't know. You know, we're kind of going to lead with that. Are a lot of clubs just saying we'll give to the women's team because they're worried about the backlash of what will happen if they don't? Is it literally just a tick box exercise of, if we pretend we're doing it and we pay lip service to it, does that just stop us getting shouted at? And I think the answer is yes for some of these teams, unfortunately, and it's about time they were outed. I think Wolves will only get paid expenses, and I guess promotion will be wages. Absolutely, but it might also mean you get more people through. And, you know, the one thing I will give Arsenal credit for, just as we're finishing here, is that they've shown how you can do that. You know, the first time I saw Arsenal play was at Boreham Wood. And, I mean, what a place that is, by the way. Very close to me. I like it. It's a nice enough place, nice enough. But you go in there and you don't walk into there and go, "Cool, this is a big match," because it's just one of your run-of-the-mill sort of Sunday league type grounds. But now look what they're doing. You know, they're not saying let's do the Emirates every single week, but you've got a side there with Premier League money that's gone, do you know what? We're going to support our women's team. We're going to give them the same opportunities, because why not? Like, is football not all about giving back to the working class? It's not about filling the pockets of ridiculous businessmen and women that just think it's all about them. So there we go. Liberty, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. Whereabouts could people hear more from you? You mentioned your journalism. Whereabouts are you writing at the moment? And where can people see more of your work?
If anyone wants to see more of what I have to say, my everything is just my name, Liberty Simons, like the boy's name with an S on the end. I talk a lot about European leagues, obviously, as I've sort of shown today, WSL as well, but my main focus and heart is in Europe. If you like Germany, if you like Sweden, I talk a lot about the Damallsvenskan, which is the top flight of Swedish women's football. Yes, very space.
I've got no idea what you just said. That was one that's gone in there that I was going to have to rebound around the room and maybe come back to my ears when I rewatch the end.
But yeah, just my name, and I talk about a lot of different things, a lot of different leagues. If you like that, or you want to broaden your horizons, sort of what I aim to do, at least, hopefully.
Absolutely. Well, it's been a pleasure and certainly gave us a lot more about the Bundesliga than I would have been able to give decent credence to. Although I don't think I did terribly. I think I did all right there with a little bit of me knowledge. We'll take that. And Sean, again, very knowledgeable from you. So well done. Thank you very much for joining us. Whereabouts can people see you?
Yeah, Twitter, TikTok, at Sean Misra, anything else. But honestly, follow Liberty on everything. The work she does, the things she covers, the way she talks about everything. Like one of the most hardworking, most people who are most passionate about the women's game that I know. So no, follow Liberty. Honestly, an amazing woman.
Well, it doesn't get much better than that, does it? So
thank
Sean will
you.
be sending the money, or sorry, Liberty will be sending the money in the post, I'm sure, for Sean there. And we'll be seeing you on Wednesday evening. Around about 7:30. We'll let you know through Twitter on that one. For Lower League Lingo, where we'll, like I say, be going through all the things in the WNL now that season is over. And we very much look forward to seeing you. But if not, we'll see you back here, same time next week, for All for Women's Football. Take care. Have a brilliant week. Good night all.